world, and welcome to another session here at the Government Information Center. I am your moderator for the afternoon, and my name is Shianoa Desire Kahiha. The topic for this afternoon is government schools application process for grade 0, 1, and 8. And in the studio, I have two panelists that will be assisting me to tackle this particular topic. But before we get to that, we would like to call on our Executive Director in the Ministry of Health and Social Services. That would be Mr. Ben Nangombe, and he is here to give us the notice on the integrated vaccine campaign, I believe. Good afternoon, Mr. Nangombe. How have you been?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good. No, we miss you. We miss you very much. So we're very happy to have you here.
No, thank you.
And please do let us know what it is that you want to present this afternoon.
Yes, I have two messages.
Mm-hmm.
One is, of course, the COVID-19 update. Of course, we have changed from a daily to fortnightly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you the update for the period, and then the second notice on vaccination.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So for the past week, that is 21st to 27th July 2022, we recorded 66 positive cases from 1,827 tests conducted, representing a positivity ratio of 3.6%. Of these positive cases, 62 are new cases and 4 are reinfections. The sex distribution is 38 females, of which 36 are new cases, and 28 males, of which 26 are new cases. The ages range from 1 month to 83 years. The distribution of the cases are as follows per region: Khomas 15, Erongo 13, Umsati 11, Oshana 7, Zambezi 5, Ohangwena 4, Ochodonjupa 3, Karas 2, Oshikoto and Omaheke 1 each. Cases were reported from 10 regions. Among the reported and confirmed cases are 7 learners, 2 students, 1 teacher, and 1 healthcare worker. 2 of the cases have received 1 dose of COVID-19 vaccine. 24 have received 2 doses, and 7 have received booster doses. 7 are not eligible for vaccination, and 33 were not vaccinated. We recorded 96 recoveries from 10 regions during the period, and they are distributed as follows: Karas region 26, Erongo 20, Khomas 17, Oshana 17, Umsati and Oshikoto 4 each, Ochodonjupa and Kavango East 3 each, Ohangwena and Zambezi region 1 each. At 27 July, the number of active cases are 96. 14 are currently hospitalized in 8 regions. 1 is admitted in ICU, and the case in ICU has not been vaccinated. 1 of the hospitalized cases received 1 dose of COVID-19 vaccine. The distribution of the hospitalized cases are as follows: Umsati 5, Ohangwena 2, Ochodonjupa 2, Oshana, Erongo, Khomas, Karas, Zambezi, they have 1 each. We recorded 1 COVID-19 related death during the reporting period. A 76-year-old male from Swakopmund district with comorbidities died at a health facility on the 20th of July 2022. The deceased was not vaccinated. By the 27th of July, a total of 515,082 people aged 18 years and older have received 1 dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, representing 35% of the target population of 1.4 million. A total of 185,913 have received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, while 267,470 adults have received 2 doses of other types of vaccine. Therefore, 453,383 453,383 adults have completed their vaccination schedule, translating to 30.8% of the target population. 24,767 children aged between 12 and 17 have received one dose of the Pfizer vaccine, representing 8.1% of the target population of 307,000. Of these, 12,682 are fully vaccinated. Therefore, the cumulative number of people vaccinated with the first dose of COVID-19 vaccine for both adults and children is 539,849, of whom 466,065 are fully vaccinated, translating to a figure of 26.2% of the total target population of 1.7 million. 82,388 people have received the COVID booster vaccine. By way of the National Summary of COVID-19 Statistics, the cumulative confirmed individuals, excluding reinfections, is now 166,467. The cumulative number of cases, including reinfections, is 169,506. New confirmed cases are 62. New reinfections are 4. Recoveries now stand at 165,323, representing a recovery rate of 97.5%. Active cases are 96. The cumulative number of the first dose of COVID-19 vaccine now stand at 539,849. Second dose, 280,152. The completed doses, 466,065. COVID deaths, 3,718. COVID-related deaths, 354. Total deaths, 4,072. Total samples tested, 1,069,494. I move on to the special announcement on the National Integrated Vaccination Campaign. The Ministry of Health and Social Services and partners will conduct a national integrated vaccination campaign countrywide from the 8th to the 19th of August 2022. The vaccination campaign is for children between 9 months and 5 years, and it will cover measles and rubella and other routine vaccination. The aim is to prevent childhood diseases such as polio, diarrheal diseases, whooping cough, and others. In addition, deworming for children 12 months to 5 years, screening for malnutrition, and ready-to-use therapeutic foods will be provided to children who are 6 months to 5 years. The ready-to-use therapeutic foods will be given to children who have been identified as being malnourished. Also, there will be vitamin A supplementation that will be offered to children who are 6 months to 5 years. At the same time, vaccination against COVID-19 will be offered to persons aged 12 years and older. Also, women of childbearing age will be offered tetanus toxoid vaccine and iron supplements. Members of the public are urged to fully participate in the campaign so that we can prevent and avoid affliction with vaccine-preventable diseases. The campaign will be officially launched on the 3rd of August 2022 in the whole country, while the official event will take place in Windhoek at the UN Plaza. That completes the update for this afternoon. I thank you very much.
Mr. Nabo, before I let you go, I just wanted to gain clarity. The vaccination campaign,
Yes.
Are we going to be seeing designated areas in addition to our normal health facilities that will be set up for this campaign, or is it only at clinics and hospitals?
The vaccination campaign will take place at various vaccination points around the country, and there will be mobile teams also moving in the communities. So they will be clearly identifiable through the banners that we have developed for this campaign, and that's why we are saying we urge all members of the public to participate fully in the campaign.
Okay. Where can one get information with regards to these various venues that will be set up outside the normal health facilities?
We have this information available on our ministerial website. We have produced flyers that will also be distributed. Okay. So thanks for asking that question. We need to get the information out there.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Mr. Nangombe. Once again, we appreciate you taking the time out to come and educate us.
You're most welcome. Have a good discussion going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There we have it. We had our weekly COVID update, as well as that notice with regards to the integrated vaccine campaign. That was done by Mr. Nangombe from the Ministry of Health and Social Services, who's the Executive Director. Now we hand over the platform onto our Deputy Minister in the Ministry of Information and Communication Technology. That would be Honorable Emma Theophilus, and she is here to give us our bi-weekly cabinet briefings. Good afternoon, ma'am. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
I am very well. It's good to see you again.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, viewers and listeners at home. This afternoon, I shall give and have the pleasure to share with you the cabinet decisions issued at the 12th decision-making cabinet meeting held on Tuesday, the 26th of July, 2022. Cabinet decision number 1. Cabinet took note of the rollout and implementation of the drought relief program from March 2021 to June 2022 and the associated expenditure, which spans around food assistance, logistics, free animal fodder, subsidy of transportation to and from grazing, subsidy for lease of grazing, subsidy for fodder production, water provision, and the like. Cabinet took note of the reported low rainfall and food shortages experienced in the Kunene region and some areas of Erongo and Omusati regions, respectively. Cabinet approved the extension of the drought relief food distribution program in Kunene region, some areas of Omusati, namely the Ruakana, Okahawa, Outapi, Tsandi, and Onesi constituencies, and the Erongo region, namely Daures, Karibib, and Walvish Bay Rural Constituency, from July 2022 to 31st March 2023. Cabinet endorsed that the funding of 81.4 million Namibian dollars for the drought relief program be sourced from the National Emergency Disaster Fund. Cabinet then directed the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform to finalize the assessment for the costing of the drilling, rehabilitation, and the installation of boreholes and submit a report for the consideration of Cabinet. And finally, Cabinet approved that the regional governors be directed to devise mechanisms to ensure that food distribution and assistance is facilitated to all qualifying and registered beneficiaries. The second Cabinet decision is around the improved implementation and prevention of the intervention to child sexual exploitation and abuse in Namibia through the recommendations from the Disrupting Harm study conducted in Namibia on the online sexual exploitation and abuse of children. Cabinet took note of the Disrupting of Harm study on online child sexual exploitation and abuse and its recommendations. Cabinet then directed the Ministry of Gender Equality, Poverty Eradication, and Child Welfare to implement the said recommendations in consultation with the relevant stakeholders. 1. To equip caregivers with knowledge and skills to foster safe and ongoing communication with children about their lives online. 2. To inform children in age-appropriate terms about the risk of harm in an online environment. 3. To to improve awareness programs about online child sexual exploitation and abuse, and how certain crimes against children can be facilitated through digital technology. 4, to strengthen children's digital literacy, to empower them with the skills and understanding needed to avoid or navigate dangerous situations online. And finally, to facilitate the training of police officers, prosecutors, judges and magistrates, lawyers, courtroom staff, child protection officers, regional school counselors, life skills teachers, and frontline workers, which is focused on the orchesia and how to address it within their respective professions. The last cabinet decision, Desire, is on the stakeholder report on Namibia's participation at the World Economic Forum. Cabinet took note of the report and outcomes of Namibia's participation at the World Economic Forum in Davos in 2022 and directed the Office of the President through the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board to ensure that the next steps or actions proposed in the report are implemented to promote Namibia as a preferred investment destination. This brings me to the end of the decisions issued at the 12th decision-making cabinet meeting held on Tuesday, the 26th of July, 2022.
Well concise. Thank you very much. I do have a question though, or concern. With our first decision that was taken, it was with regards to the drought and the drought relief. Just a quick question. Within the discussion, was there any enlightenment on whether or not the rest of the country might also in the near future experience some of this, especially if we look at the fact that we had a lot of rain, but it was huge volumes that did not seem to take on the ground. Did we have any discussions with regards to how we will be handling that, or is it not of concern at this point yet?
Well, Cabinet is always appraised with the current situation on the ground and is always considering avenues to respond to any disaster that might occur in the nation and to respond swiftly to the National Emergency Disaster Risk Management Fund. And if that situation does arise, that there are needs beyond the 3 specific regions of Kunene, Omusati, and Irongo, provision will be made in the fund to ensure that those regions are taken care of.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Honorable.
Thank you.
Thank you for availing yourself for today's briefing.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Now, with that, with those 2 briefings, with the COVID update, with the cabinet briefings, as well as the notice that was given here, the health notice that was given, we would like to come back to our topic for this afternoon. And we were looking, or are looking, at government schools' application process for grade 0, 1, and 8. At this point, I'd like to remind our viewers that there are various social media platforms that you can catch us on. We have our Facebook platform. You can find us at Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia. That is Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia. That is on Facebook. You can also find us on our YouTube channel, and our handle there is MICT Namibia, MICT Namibia. We will be opening the call line a little bit later on in the show. But for now, I'd like to introduce you to my 2 panelists that will be dissecting this particular topic for us. And we have Mr. Milton Yaoto. He is the Inspector of Education in the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me.
We also have Ms. Hilia Nunyango, and she is a Senior Education Officer in the Program and Quality Assurance Directorate in the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon to you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here and availing us your time to be able to help us discuss this particular topic, which is very much of concerns to parents, especially at the time of the year. The first question I'd like to pose to Mr. Yaoto, and this is basically, what is the Ministry of Education's strategic plan pertaining to school placement for the year 2021 and 2022?
Our strategic plan, the strategic plan of the Ministry of Education speaks to access, equity, and quality. Topical today is the question of accessibility of schools. Learners have to go to school. As you know, that A child who's 5-year-old turning 6 in that year should attend pre-primary school. And a child who's 6 turning 7 in the same year should start grade 1. And so for the next 16 years, these children are obliged by the Education Act to be in school. So the Ministry of Education in Commerce Region is also inundated with quite a lot of requests by parents who come. A lot of them do hear the call and they come at the right time. But amongst them, there are those who pitch on the last date. But the Ministry of Education have got a responsibility to ensure that all the children, 16 years and younger, up till the age of 5 years old, are having access to education.
Okay. Our next question still speaks to strategy, and here the question is, your strategic plan, as you said and alluded to earlier on, speaks to access, equity, and quality as some of the goals. Can you briefly break down the goals in relation to the school placement and accessibility?
Yeah. The goals as to the access of our learners in schools. Access starts at a very early age. It starts before the children goes to school. It starts with the Ministry of Education enumerating and counting on the number of spaces we have in our schools. Grade 1 spaces and grade 1 up to the grade 1 spaces and up till grade 3. These are junior primary phase, which have got a lot of our people coming in from all directions. As you might know, that Commerce region is one of the regions which have got a lot of requests for spaces. Now, access to education, we go as far as erecting tents where the need is. But not needless to say, the Ministry of Education have got that mandate to ensure that all the children of school-going age are having space into a conventional class, and that we have been trying our best to do.
Okay. Ms. Hilia, we would like to know, what is the process and requirements for application and registration for grade 0s, 1, and 8? And in addition, can you go into specifics about the dates of application and registration?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Before I answer your question, let me do a bit of correction. In our Ministry of Education, we don't have grade 0, but we do have pre-primary. Yeah, that's a correction. Okay, coming to the question, the process of admission starts at the Ministry of Education head office with the development of the admission circular. The ministry, the Directorate of Programs and Quality Assurance develops the admission circular given to the regions, and the regions distribute or send it to the schools, and the schools can now implement the circular at the school level. That's how the process is. Comes to the requirement, as my colleague has alluded to earlier, in pre-primary, a child should turn 6 years old to be enrolled in pre-primary, and in grade 1, the child should be 7 years old to be in grade 1, and we go up to grade 8, where a child who is in grade 7 in the current year can apply for grade 8, because we have pre-primary and grade 1 and grade 8. These are all entrance levels of education or schooling in our schools.
Okay. Do we have any dates thus far with regards to registration and application?
Yes, I can say yes, we do have dates. We do have a schedule.
Okay.
Like after the admission circular dispatched to the regions now should start with the advocacy, creating awareness, informing the community about the application period. Most of the time, the admission circular sent to schools in April or in May, depends, mostly in May, so that in June or end of May, parents should start collecting application forms from the schools. Then in most cases, it's given a period of 1 month where the parents can now come to schools and collect application forms and submit application forms. Then when the application period has lapsed, then comes the schools now starting to process applications received, allocate learners. If it's grade 8, then it depends on the space available in that school. And then after the process, then the school principal should now provide feedback to the parents about the outcome of the applications. Those who are admitted, they are being informed that you are admitted. And those who are not admitted, still they should be communicated to. The reason should be given why the application is not successful. It might be possible that there is no enough space for that. I mean, it depends on the space available in that specific grade. Then after the applications or the feedback is given, now in case if there are those who are not admitted for one reason or another, then the school principal, through the inspectors of education, they forward the names of those who are not admitted to the regional office, Directorate of Education, where we do have an admission committee at the school, at the regional level. And then the admission committee will now deal with those specific applicants who could not get space there. To assure you, no parent is sent back like your application is not successful or the application of your child is not successful, you go and look for the space for your child. No, we don't do that. We send the application forms the names of those who are not admitted to the regional office, and then the regional office again, because those who are admitted have now to confirm whether they accept the admission or not. Then for all other spaces that will occur, and that's where these other learners who were not admitted at various schools will be placed. That's how it is. And then the process is a bit long. Yeah. Then after that, then the regional director of every region should now report or send the information to head office, where about how many learners are admitted in the region in a grade, in pre-primary, grade 1, grade 8, so that now the ministry should now prepare for anything that needs to be done, being it's in infrastructure or maybe teachers. It depends how the situation is and how the report says.
Okay. There you have it. I hope that has helped to have understanding being placed out there on what is the process. And we do know of complaints, a lot of complaints where, parents state that they are being turned back or they're being turned down by the schools and so on. So hopefully that gives faith to say, there is still, a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not a complete darkness when it comes to the enrollment and placement of your children at entry levels. We do have a comment from our social media platform, and this one comes from Benny Bobeye on our Facebook platform. And Benny is saying some government high schools discriminate against poorer performing learners and those with disciplinary issues and only enroll those with high symbols. Sadly, they are even comically stigmatized as rejects, and these learners struggle to find schools in January. What is the Ministry of Education doing to address this huge universal problem, except for placing learners? I think that is actually a very concerning issue there. Thank you very much, Benny, for bringing that to light. Mr. Otto? Yes. Mr. Hilia? Ms. Hilia, pardon me.
Okay, it's a concern. I mean, the caller has said it rightly, but the Ministry of Education's mandate is to ensure that everybody across board is treated fairly. You know, we cannot discriminate on any person's condition, but we would like to have our schools also to have a certain standard. Children or learners coming to the schools should conform to the rules of the schools. Although we are not saying that if a learner do not have conform to a particular rules, that learner should be shown the door. There are structures in the system to make sure that these learners become good citizens at the end of the day. They conform to the rules and they adhere to socialization with all the other children.
I think away from just the disciplinary part of the issue, I think there was also the low symboled learners. Not all of our children, are having your A's and your B's and C's. And it seems that from what Benny is saying, you find schools that use that as their acceptance criteria. And that is where that part, the first part of his question comes in. Like, what is the ministry doing to try and deal with this?
Going back to the purpose of the admission circular is to do or to create awareness of who is eligible to be admitted or to apply to be admitted in school for the following year. If the campaign is done properly, I don't think that someone will be turned back, because the space available in school will determine if there is enough space or there is not enough space. This year, the Ministry of Education has conducted a research beginning of the year where we found out that in most cases, people who do not get admission on time are those who late to apply. In most cases, the admission period is given, time was availed for people to apply, but you'll find 1 or 2, 3 parents at the beginning of the year when the school reopens coming asking for admission. Then it becomes so difficult for the school to just admit like that. That's why we have the 15th state statistic, where we collect data and we determine, or schools determine, what space is available. Our constitution, Article 20 of our constitution, articulates for education for all. Therefore, any school that is administering a competency test or looking at the performance of any learner, then they are not implementing the policy as it is. Because we are talking about access to education, equity, and quality. Then discriminating, it's not allowed at all.
Okay. There's something that you just mentioned now, and I'd like to stay with that. Competency test. If I understood correctly, you said some schools are doing this and that's not part of the policy?
Yes, it's not part of the policy.
So now in the cases, because this is happening, so how does one then deal with that? Is it, because it is happening, so I think this is why I'm placing the question, but I'm not quite sure, because it's something that is happening, but yet from the ministry's perspective, you're saying they're not supposed to be doing it. So how's it still being carried out?
The only reason why schools should do it is to assist and to assess where the learner is, but not to use it as a measure to disallow learners to get into the system.
Okay.
If they want to ensure, to make sure what the standard of this learner is, so that they can assist. Yes, it is the only reason why they should administer a test. It is purely to ensure and to make sure that this learner have got these qualities, this is the baseline where he is, and how are they going to take him forward in assistance to become a good learner.
Okay. How is the ministry tackling the issue of lack of classrooms and teachers?
As we all know, we do have a number of qualified teachers in the street. And these teachers, it's not that the ministry does not want to employ the teachers, but this is because of lack of infrastructure and lack of financial resources. However, the ministry is not quite on that. The ministry has what we call an accelerated development plan, which is focusing on infrastructure gaps to close the gap between infrastructure and the service provided. And this plan is there to mobilize the resources, to mobilize, to involve stakeholders, to involve partners in education. And as we know, the ministry alone cannot be able to absorb all the teachers to absorb all the teachers in the system. Therefore, we are inviting our partners in education, private sectors, any person who can come on board and assist the Ministry of Education and the government at large to look at that issue and then solve the problem of lack of unemployed teachers who are roaming around the streets, and also to build more classrooms or any other infrastructure that is needed in education.
Okay. I think that question comes from the fact that we have cases where you find one teacher that is dealing with about 60 learners in a classroom. And then you find other schools that are also, mind you, government schools, where you have a very low number of students, yet that classroom will have a teacher and they will have an assistant teacher. And how do you then deal with that imbalance?
Yeah, some, for obvious reasons, some schools are more in demand than the others. And it's also a question of accessing the school. Some parents will want their children just in their vicinity where they can walk to school, whereas others have the means to transport them to wherever the school might be. Yes, there are such disparities where especially schools in the suburbs are quite more overloaded because of what I have mentioned. But the schools in the formal, areas or in town, for example, they might have a bit of a limited number. That was 3 to 2 years ago, but now the numbers in Commerce region, there is no class with less than 40 learners in all the schools across the whole region. So the gap is closing, and we do not have, the only schools also where we have assistant teachers, or where we want assistant teachers for now, It's our resource schools. These are the schools like visually impaired, where we, you know, um, would like to gladly have assistant teachers. And we, because we have also areas where we start to use the inclusive education also as a tool to close that gap. We have for the first time enrolled, for example, a child with visual impairments at Pioneers Park Primary School in a pre-grade. And this teacher never had such a child with visual impairment, but I understand they are doing very well and things are going fine. Yes, the gaps are there, especially you find schools in the informal settlements where the numbers are just too high in the classrooms. The numbers goes up to 50, 54 and so on. Um, while the government, even the more classes we build, the more the influx of people, rural urbanization is real in commerce. Is it's not as if there's nothing being done to it. It's really because we do not have control over people coming to the city.
Okay. For the sake of time, I'll leave that one there. I think we need to move on to the next question, which is quite an important or thorn actually for many schools and parents, and that speaks to the development fund. Mehilia, what is the purpose of the development fund in schools?
In simple language, the purpose of the School Development Fund is to improve school facilities. The School Development Fund is used to run or to cater for school facilities like buying printing papers, sport activities, service for school bus if the school has a bus. Yeah, it's meant just for school facilities, to improve the school facilities, to compensate, not to compensate, but to add to what the schools are getting from the government, what we call government grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
With regards to the school fund, a lot of schools are struggling because you will find schools that are at loggerheads with the parents. And the parents' argument is laws were changed and school has become free. Why is it that they are being forced to contribute to this development fund if it's on a voluntary basis? Because you've got cases where schools have now been forced to revert to using that. For example, let's say a report card, withholding a child's report card in order to try and get the parent to stick or to stick to the contribution that they agreed that they would be paying to the school. And it's a thing of, as you're explaining now, it is a fund that is there to assist the school to maintain infrastructure and so on. Yet you've got these two parties that are at loggerheads with regards to this fund. And also in the same vein, I think it goes to, let's say, for example,